Well, good evening. Welcome to the first issue, or first presentation of Padre's punk rock libertarian pastor's blog for a course in Spanish 1040. And I've chosen to speak to you today, this evening, about what I've learned and studied about cultural practices in terms of professions in the Latin American countries. I'm going to be speaking generally from what I've seen. So having, being older and having some knowledge of the world beyond the United States, having lived in other countries, including Canada, Armenia, France, and the Near East, France for just a 7-month period, and Armenia for months at a time on numerous occasions, and having traveled quite frequently, and even in the Middle East and various other places, and even in the Latin Americas. I've had a lot of experience to meet a lot of people in these various places, and having even worked with them and taught in these various places. So I have a lot of experiences with cultures and languages and various other things. It seemed clear to me that there were going to be naturally many parallels with what was happening in the Latin American countries with what's happening here in America and Canada, because we're so close. And a lot of the divergence is happening because of the shrinking world in which we live, with social media, especially booming now. Everyone's got their cell phones and the technologies that are being used, not only obviously here, but now, and I shouldn't say now, but also being used exclusively, especially by the younger generations in these Latin American countries. So as a result of the influence that's happening upon them from what's happening here, there's a growing interest in the young people, the new generation, to try to achieve a higher, greater a life that's going to be greater beyond what the previous generation might have had, and so their expectations are greater. Therefore, they're striving to, and they want to, go to school and get educated and have and reach the professions in a way that never quite happened in the same way in the past. After engaging in the topic during our course of studies, it became clear to me that many of my biased notions of what to imagine were correct, or close to being what I may have assumed. Latin American countries, along with their expectations of life, are strongly intertwined with the general, as I said, American way of life, except for the various divergent perspectives that offer great contrast to everybody living even among the different Latin American countries. So they're not all the same, but there are parallels that you can draw, especially looking at the professions, such as commerce, education, and medicine. The diversity is generally streamlined in the world of professions in these three areas. And then, as I said, the newer generation puts a great premium on achieving these, getting into these professions. Obviously, a big impediment for them in many of the countries, not all, and again, speaking in general terms, are going to be, the economy, civil unrest in a lot of places, varying competition among political ideologies. And, we see some of that without picking on anyone. But, we see how some of the countries like the Venezuelas of the world have really been impacted with changing economies and ideologies in politics. A lot of that which enhances these countries and the possibilities for young people to achieve that, the greater status, is going to be the social media and the mass communication, where generally the impact of culture and influence in America, North America, let's say, Canada, United States, is stronger and stronger, therefore increasing the ambitions of the people there. I prefer to dive deeper into the specific political, economic, and cultural reasons that impede or enhance one country's development over and against another, especially in those three areas of education, commerce, and medicine. But it would be safe to say that the appeal of professions and the desire to enhance socioeconomic mobility is growing among the younger generation in Latin America, where now more equity now is being seen among men and women. There's still a diversity beyond what we see in America, and in the United States, I'm sorry. but yet there's a growing equity. So more and more women are getting into the professions. More and more women are going to school, getting educated. So there's still a long way to go in a lot of the countries. And I don't want to pick on anyone offhand because I didn't look that deeply into the subject. But I believe there's some of the countries which are still maintaining those low standards of possibilities for women, and that's something that we imagine will begin to turn as the growing influence of the other countries impacts them as well. Many countries, if not most, have a younger population that wants education, as I said, and socioeconomic opportunities probably as they're influenced by the knowledge of the world beyond their borders, and that's just natural, and that also happens here. We'll see things that are happening in the world, and we'll want that, and we'll work towards getting that, and that's just exactly what's happening. Of course, the economics will impede the ability of that information or that product or that perspective even to be cultivated and brought into their world that they're living. So therefore, economics and distribution vary greatly, often impeding the progress of the new generation's hopes and desires. But clearly, the desire of the young generation to emerge and seek commonality and universality in their expectations, and even especially styles of clothing and food are also being impacted in this shrinking world. I believe that from what I've learned, that while the uniqueness still exists, there's a knowledge of these other perspectives that influence one over against the other in a greater and more impactful way than ever before. That's not always a good thing. It may seem like it is, but it also diminishes the value of the culture in which their generations have lived. So it wouldn't be my preference to see that disappear. On the contrary, some of the values that we see in some of those countries can really enhance our own life, like the emphasis on family and breaking bread and these sorts of things, which we've lost in America. It's become a very fast food culture, and you wouldn't want to see that also being adopted. And it is, the fast food, the coffee grab and go. I mean, that's just not the culture in which their parents and their grandparents and their great grandparents and generations beyond them have enjoyed. One thing that seems to be ever present to me, at least, is that there's that family dynamic, like I said, and I think that's going to prop up the Latin American countries in a way that we, in a large way, have lost. So that's something I would like to see, enhance our lives. So as we see what's happening there, and we see the value that they place on those things, why not, adopt them in our world? I know I personally like that, but then again, I come from maybe somewhat of a diverse background where those things were a premium in my life. So I like to see that in America too. I think that's something that's sorely lacking. And we've seen a lot of immigration in America, and obviously for economic reasons. And people like being here because they can have opportunities that they may not have in their own country. But hopefully they can maintain some of those wonderful things that they've brought here, that they've brought from their ancestral land. So finally, thanks for listening to me on this, my first podcast ever, if that's what you want to call it. And I'm sorry I'm late. It was promised to launch yesterday, but I let things get in the way. So anyway, thank you for listening. God bless you. Adios.